Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to JA Manitoba's virtual World of Choices event. The goal today is simple. We want to inspire you to learn all that you can about some different career paths and gain insight, knowledge, and resources to pursue your dreams after high school. We're really excited about the 6 amazing speakers you're going to hear from. We hope that you'll learn more about a career that perhaps you're interested in, and more importantly, discover one that you don't know much about. After each speaker speaks for a few minutes and talks about themselves and their path, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions. So teachers, please have your questions typed into the chat and send them along. And at the end of your session, in a day or two, teachers, we're going to send you a survey, if you could, a digital one, if you could fill it out and send us that back, that would be terrific. First off, we want to start with Brennen Peters. Brennen works at Penn-Co Construction, and we're really thrilled to have him first up to bat here. So Brennen, if you could take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself and your path, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. I think you're muted, Brennen.
How about now?
There you go.
Right on. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Brennen Peters. I'm a carpenter with Penn-Co Construction, as Greg mentioned. So a little bit about me. Growing up, I've always loved building stuff. My parents spent a lot of money, and I spent a lot of hours invested in Lego, just building stuff left, right, and center. So growing up, I've always had, being in a construction-oriented family, watching houses and buildings go up on a regular basis, that was the coolest thing in the world for me. So I always knew that I liked building stuff. So when the opportunity came in high school to do a high school apprenticeship, that interested me way more than being in class. That was awesome. So I got to work for credits. So I started in grade 10 working out of town with Penn-Co Construction, and we were building a school, and that was hooked. That was instantly right there. That's exactly what I wanted to do, was construction. That was set. So it's really rewarding to be able to see something. You know, that's very easy to say, that you can watch something be built. It's super rewarding in the sense that you drive by and say, I was part of that building or that building or that building. Now, what I do as far as construction goes, I'm mainly in commercial construction. So that's large buildings, hospitals, nursing stations, schools, large scale stuff, and a lot of stuff of my job is out of town as well. And that's allowed me to adventure a lot of places and see parts of the world, and even this country that I don't necessarily get to see on a regular basis. It's so it really gets you a full view of different walks of life and how different things work, and how easy some people have it more than others. And yeah, that's really eye-opening in that regard. What a typical day looks like for me at work. So my role as a carpenter, the days vary very wildly. One day I might be doing layout on the job site. One day I might be doing forming, rebar, siding. The nice thing about commercial construction is the variety of stuff you get to do on a regular basis, and I guess I've benefited from the most is being well-rounded in that regard. I have done framing on typical job sites. I haven't framed enough houses for me to be comfortable doing that, but I know I can figure it out if need be. But I have done some framing. We've framed up a couple buildings up north on remote locations. some similar opportunities in our field. So the nice thing about carpentry, especially on a commercial job site, is you get to see a lot of trades. Uh, the trades that come onto the job site, there could be, I think the most people have been on site uh, at one time. I think it was about 120 people between different trades, between sprinkler fitters, electricians, plumbers, roofers, carpenters, drywallers. So you get to learn all about other jobs and trades as well while doing your own job. It's I've applied a lot of those information and lessons from work to home life too, as far as plumbing goes. Like I can fix simple stuff. I'm not by any means a licensed plumber, but it really it's really nice being able to be well rounded. It's and it saves a lot of time and money in the long run too. So you don't have to you feel confident enough to fix something that's a simple fix. Uh, I wouldn't go plumbing a house by myself, but on top of that, you also get contacts. You get you learn to talk to people on big job sites, and you can ask them questions like, "Hey, how do I fix this? How do I approach this scenario? How would you fix this scenario?" Um, so that that's super helpful in that regard. My day to day, typical day week, as I said before, it varies quite a bit. So we usually show up 15 minutes before the start of our work time, usually 7 a.m. We'll go over the list of jobs of who's assigned to what for the day, uh, and then we will spread out evenly. Uh, my role a lot of times is a lot of layout, a little bit of coordinating with other sub trades to make sure the stuff that we need to get done gets done proper and things don't get missed. And then almost like quality control as well to make sure it gets done properly. That's because at the end of the day, later down the road, if something gets missed, it can mean big bucks, and that can be really a big headache if stuff gets missed. Um, as far as the week goes, especially the project that we're on, um, doing something almost differently every day. Rebar, like I said, rebar, forming, layout, coordinating with other sub trades, cross-referencing the print, and making sure everything's good to go. So that's a short blurb about me. Um, anything I should add to that, Greg?
No, that's great. There's already some questions that have popped in, so I'll get
Okay.
right at them. Somebody says, did you get your training for credits at Steinbach Regional Secondary School? And then was there any further training required after graduating from high school before being hired?
So I started off. I went to St. Anne Collegiate, actually.
Okay,
So I went to a elementary school in Liberal Creek, Manitoba, Arbogate, and then I went to St. Anne Collegiate. And so every 110 hours that I would work on the job site, that would be credit to that'd be one high school credit.
okay,
So I got to not so much for after the first year, but my grade 11 year and my grade 12 year, I was able to drop unnecessary courses and focus on courses that would benefit me. And then instead of going to school, I would do courses at home and work full time. And I would go towards high school credits. And then I would, after hours, after high school was done, then it would be hours counted towards an apprenticeship.
gotcha. Okay. Um, how long is the apprenticeship program? Like, how much school versus how many work hours is the question?
So they say it's 4 years. And that's true for most trades. Some trades are less, some trades are more by a year or two.
Okay,
Um, Now, the way the apprenticeship works, and it's really convenient, is you get to work and do schooling at the same time, essentially. So it works out that if you work 10 months of the year, doing 8-hour days, 5 days a week, that racks up enough hours. I believe it's 1,800 in between each level. I can't remember the exact number. Um, then you go for your first level, and the reason they do that is so you get work experience between each level, and you're not just going from level 1 to level 4 for carpentry, for example, and then going out in the field as a ticketed person. tradesperson without any work experience.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, somebody says I see an award poster behind you, Brennen. Congratulations.
Thank you. They were giving them out at the awards ceremony, so I took it home.
Oh, nice.
That's
Okay,
my
so
there was
what's
a
the award
banner.
for?
So I was nominated by one of our guys up in HR for Journeyperson of the Year for 2022.
Wow.
So I believe it's I can't tell you the exact number of how many people get nominated, but there's finalists. So there's finalists for, I believe there's 6 for each. There's finalists for Employer of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Journeyperson Rural, and Journeyperson Urban.
Okay.
So I was one of the 6 finalists for the Journeyperson of the Year Rural, which is, so that's mainly outside of Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, I actually won. I
Oh,
was not expecting to, but it was very humbling, and
that's
definitely didn't
awesome.
have a speech prepared for that. But
That's
just
awesome.
the nomination itself was more than enough for me.
Well, as you get older, just, you can embellish a story and say there was hundreds and then thousands of people nominated that you beat out. So, somebody asks, how many holidays do you get? Like, how many days off do you get? And can you make overtime?
That's very dependent on what you do, who you work for, and what you specialize in. So for me personally, I work for a commercial outfit. We have we are unionized, so we have a set work week potentially for the most part,
Okay.
and any potential off time. Our company especially is very forgiving and says if you want time off and stuff like that. There's definitely overtime, especially if you're working out of town up north, which we do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Um, Minimum you're working 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
If you're uptown, out of town, up north and stuff like that, you want to do more time,
Yeah.
depending on the work schedule that we have.
Okay.
We have different work shifts, and that's changing as well as we speak. We have even more northern work that will require longer shifts worked. So it all depends who you work for, really. It could be if you
Gotcha.
work for a small framing company, work you might blast off 7 days of the week and go on to the
Yeah.
next thing. Because we're unionized, we have a set work schedule, and it sometimes gets changed a little bit with what's going on site. Concrete definitely waits for no man. So concrete, if you're doing concrete all the time, you go till it's done. If it's framing, you might blast off a house in 2 weeks. It
Gotcha.
varies greatly.
Okay, a question came in talking about sort of hours and overtime. They're asking what kind of benefits does your company offer? And is that one of the reasons you like working for that company as opposed to working for yourself?
So that's another great perk about working for a commercial outfit, especially one that's unionized, is we get amazing benefits. My dental, my eye care, my medical, physiotherapy, all those medical benefits are covered for the most part.
Okay.
Um, I think the only thing I've ever had to pay was for me not brushing my teeth for not going to the dentist for 7 years, and having 7 cavities. So
Ouch.
that's on me though. But it's then again, majority of it was covered. I had to pay, I think it was $200 because I was trying to get them all fixed.
There you go.
But in the grand scheme of things,
That's
the
pretty good.
family dental, yeah, it's really great. Our
Okay.
benefits are really great.
Okay. Another sort of related question. What's the average wage for your profession? And how, like what's the range as you get more experience, I guess?
So starting out, the wages, I think the starting wage is from knowing nothing. I believe it goes up to anywhere from it can vary. With commercial sized companies, you're gonna get a bit more, especially unionized companies as well. If you go work for a small training outfit or a framing outfit, you're gonna get a lower wage off the bat, and then you're gonna work your way up. So I started from the bottom. I've been working for this company almost 10 years now, if you count part time. And I started off at 15, and now with my journeyman ticket, I'm making I think around $40 an hour.
Awesome. Perfect.
So that's sorry, you will you will make more on an average basis working for a unionized commercial outfit.
Right.
That being said, if you work for yourself or you're if you work for yourself, find work for yourself, you can potentially make more depending on how you run your business.
Gotcha. Okay, I got time for two more questions. Did you get trained in commercial and residential, or is it all one and the same?
So I mainly got trained in commercial. It's
Okay,
been my primary scope jobs. You don't necessarily. It's good background to have both. It's definitely beneficial. What tends to happen is some guys will fall into a linear path where they just do commercial or they just do framing or they'll bounce back and forth. Um, and sometimes it's scary at first, but it's very easy to pick up once you get the overall hang of it. It's definitely two different worlds, especially as tools and equipment go. Um, yeah, it's I don't have as much residential framing experience as I'd like, but that being said, I'm confident enough that I can figure it out and I'm not
yeah,
lost if when required to do it.
gotcha. Okay, last question. Workplace safety is obviously a really important thing. How sort of present is everything around workplace safety? Have you seen or been a part of any major accidents is the questions.
So workplace health and safety and OSHA for that matter, occupational safety and hazards assessments are very integrated on especially commercial job sites. Residential job sites, they have a bit more flexibility. But for commercial job site, like we have a safety meeting once a week. We have a dedicated safety guy on site working with us, making sure railings are fixed. He does his walkthroughs on a weekly basis. He fills out reports. I myself have been pretty fortunate to not have been in a super serious accident. Not that they haven't happened. They definitely happened. But typically they weren't when I was around. I've been on safety committee meetings. I've been the safety guy on a couple of job sites. Um, Injuries happen. That's part of construction, but the goal is to mitigate them as best as possible, and Everyone goes home safe. That's the ultimate goal.
Absolutely. Okay, well, on that positive note, we'll end it there. Thanks so much for joining us,
Mhm.
Brennan. This was really fascinating and I think
Mm.
gave students a real eye-opener to your industry. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah. Sorry to butt in here. One last thing here.
Sure,
Um, I know in this short time frame, there's probably a ton of more questions and stuff like that. I'd like to plug in my contact information for teachers and students
sure,
if that's
sure,
possible.
sure,
So for any questions that didn't get asked, they can email me privately when I have time, or like set up a meeting time to answer their questions in a more expanded
sure.
session. I'd love to do that.
Okay, yeah, we can share your contact info with all the teachers for
Okay,
sure. Absolutely.
that'd be great.
Okay, thanks again.
Cool. Thank you.
Talk soon. Take care.
Bye.
Next up is Hiba Malik. Hiba is an esthetician at 7K Extended. And I'm just looking at my screen, make sure she's online. There she is. Hiba, can you see me and hear me? You're muted. There
Oh,
you go.
hi Greg, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, thank you.
Do you
So
want to take
I'll
a
start.
couple minutes? Do you want to take a couple minutes and just tell us about yourself and kind of your path, and then we'll jump into a Q&A?
Yeah, for sure. So
Awesome.
my name is. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Hiba Malik, but I got married a month ago, so now it's Hiba Usman. I am in the beauty industry, so in the aesthetics industry. I do laser hair removal, nails, waxing, facials, microneedling, and yeah, stuff like that. So I got into the industry about 10 years ago, and just how Brennan said, I did it through high school as well. So I was in grade 11, and that's how the opportunity came up to do a trade. And my mom was actually in the beauty industry in the past. So that motivated me to take this course, and I got high school credits. I graduated from high school and a trade school altogether. So right when I was actually in my course, in my aesthetics course, in the middle of it, I got a job. So I started completing my hours as I was doing the course. So that worked out perfectly. And so, yeah, so I started with my nail care course, skincare, and then I took my further courses to become sort of a medical esthetician. So when you go towards the laser world, that then expands to the medical aesthetics more than the regular aesthetics, that is nails and skincare. I also learned a little bit of lashes, but not too much. Yeah, so I started in the industry 10 years ago. I worked for somebody for about 5 years, and then 5 years later, I started my own business. I also was an educator at one point for gel polish brand, where I was traveling over Canada, so cities like Calgary, Saskatoon, Halifax. They would bring me to trade shows where I have to represent my brand and sort of teach people how to do nails and how to use the products. And these conferences are held at different locations where all the beauty industry people come together, and then they host classes. But it's not for everybody, it's only for the professionals that are in the industry. So I did that for about 3 years, and then it was just getting too much to run my business and travel all at the same time. So I quit that, but maybe I'd want to travel again for work, because it was actually really nice traveling on somebody else's expense. Somebody's booking you a hotel, giving you money to eat, and then you're also going to different cities. So that gives you, a little bit of time. Not, I didn't get a lot of time to go outdoors, but I got enough time to go and roam around the city wherever I was. So that was, I think, the coolest part of my career, is traveling. And then yeah, and if I talk about hours and work ethics, and a lot of people think that being a business owner is easy. A lot of people think it's hard. It's a mix of both. It has its pros and cons. I think the hardest part about being in the customer service industry is building your clientele. That's where a lot of people seem to get disappointed in a trade, is building the clientele. So if any of you people are looking to get into a trade and in a business, in a career where it requires you to build clientele, my suggestion and advice would be to stay consistent and stay patient. Those two things are really going to help you with building a career. And just keep your attitude positive. There will be days where maybe you'll feel like you picked the wrong path, but again, consistency and appreciation for your clients. I really did go above and beyond for people, and that's what made me different than all the other uh, beauty industry people, I guess, out there for my clients. So let's say if somebody wants like a little sparkly nail, I didn't sell myself short, but I would just do it for my good clients just for no charge. And then that's how I build clients in the beginning, is discounting a service here and there, or doing something just like that for somebody for them to come back. And then over the last 10 years, I actually have some clients that stayed with me throughout all this time. And it's crazy to think that I have some clients that have been seeing me for 10 years. A lot has changed in my life ever since then. And I've been through um, their major life events with them, and they've been through my major life events with me. So it's pretty crazy to think the relationships that you can create being a business owner and being in a trade. What else can I tell you guys here? Hours. So hours really vary, because I'm at a point in my career where I can make my own schedule. Of course, I like to stay consistent with the schedule, but at this point, it's pretty flexible if I wanted a day off here and there. So, for example, if I'm going on a trip and I don't work Sundays or Mondays, um, I'm going on a trip, I will work Sunday and Monday to cover up the time that I'm going to take off. So it's pretty flexible, but flexibility doesn't mean that you can slack off. Actually, when you're a business owner, you are working more than you think. And sometimes people have a misconception that, oh, you own your own business and you book your own clients, so you can do whatever you want. Yes, you can do whatever you want, but at the same time, that can be dangerous. So again, you want to stay consistent with your scheduling, with your clients, with your services, and then all the good things happen. So this is a little bit about me, and then if anybody has any questions, feel free, and I'll try my best to answer them for you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've already got a bunch of questions. If you were to specialize in one type of service, what would you pick? Which one makes the most money?
Oh, so laser hair removal is what makes the most money. So laser hair removal and micro needling is what my top two services I would do.
Okay. Have you considered hiring other estheticians to build your business?
Yes, so I do have one esthetician working for me right now. So right now my salon is divided into two parts: hair and skincare and nail care. So my business partner runs the hair side, I run the aesthetic side, and personally I have one employee, and my business partner who does hair has two at the moment. So we have one big space where we split the rent. My business partner has her own finances, I have my own finances. In one big space, we just split the rent. She runs her own business, I run my own business. So yes, one employee I have.
Awesome. What is you talked about like your longtime clients that you've had forever, but what's your best source of getting new clients?
Word of mouth referrals is the best one.
And do you talk to your current clients about like do you ask for referrals or do you promote that or do you just let you don't you just leave it and let them promote you without you asking?
That was when I started in the beginning of my career. I would hand out some coupons or tell them that if you brought your friend, you'll get a certain percentage off or something. But I haven't done that in the last 6, 7 years, and I feel very thankful that people put the trust in me to just go and tell their friends without me even asking them. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Somebody asked, do you have TikTok or Instagram? Which also leads me to that question about is that a source of clients, new clients, and that type of thing?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram. It's called 7K Extended, and Rosalie, my business partner, and I have been trying for 2 years to make content for TikTok, and I actually made some content and I deleted it because it was so bad. So, so yes, we have Instagram. We're somewhat active just because we are pretty busy, so we try to post here and there. So whoever wants to follow, please just search 7K Extended on Instagram, and we'll come up.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
To run your own business, there's another question. Did you take any courses or did you have a mentor to help you learn how to run your business?
I tried going to Red River College in Winnipeg to do a business admin course, but I realized that when I was working for my former boss, Crystal, who has been honestly, she's the one who motivated me for so many things too, for a lot of things, for most things to run my business. So when I was working for Crystal, that's where I learned most of the things. Like I basically became her right hand at one point. So I was somewhat managing for her, and I saw my former boss run her business. So that's where I learned the most, not school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, how many clients do you have on average, slash, do you need to make your business profitable?
Oh,
And
see
that's a
that?
broad question because I mean you have so many
Yeah,
different services, I know.
exactly, right? So let's say if you're only doing nails and you're only charging $40 for a nail set, versus when you're doing laser hair removal and you're charging $100 for a 10-minute service versus you're doing nails for about 45 minutes and you're charging $40. So if there was only one service I was doing, I could tell you how many clients and the exact numbers. But you just have to make enough money to pay your bills, to pay your rent, to pay for
Yeah.
your vacation, and to pay for your groceries. So for the past few years, I've been running my business. All those things have had happened, thankfully. So I guess I make enough to do all those things, but there's not I can't tell you a specific number because again, that's
Okay.
a very broad question.
Yeah, yeah,
Depends.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there courses in high school or are there things in high school that students should do or take if they're interested in this type of industry, your industry?
I believe that not every high school has, or every school division has like a trade option, but I would definitely look into it. So if your school is something that provides like trade schooling, then you can get your high school credits and graduate with a trade at the same time. But that depends if your high school has that.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can look into any extended business courses and stuff, but specifically trade, your school has to offer that.
Okay. I have time for two more questions. First one, easy. Well, maybe it's not easy. Worst part of your job. What do you just is, and maybe there isn't, but what is there something you dread about your job?
100%. Waking up in the morning. I am not a morning person. So when my clients are booked at 10 a.m., I'm like, please come for 11. They're like, Hiba, just come to work. I'm like, okay, okay, fine. So they'll bring me an iced cab. They'll bring me Starbucks just to wake me up. I'm like, okay, I can take that. I can take that bribe.
Okay, I got two more. I have two more questions because one just came in. Someone asked, "What can I do to succeed if I'm just starting in aesthetics?"
Have a cool Instagram page where you're very informative. And then again, like consistent, have your friends and family promote you. And if you are having any social media platforms, just be very realistic and fun on it. And don't let other people's platforms discourage you because there's so much going on online nowadays. Online would be your best marketing, but again, you have to be careful with it. Stay true
Okay,
to yourself, tell people what you're doing, do a good job, do your best, and all will come to you.
awesome. That's a great answer. Okay,
Yeah.
last question. Best part of your job. What do you enjoy most about when you wake up and get to work and you're awake? What do you love most about your job?
Being thankful that I have the flexibility to make my own schedule and do what I want really at my own business. But the bestest part would be my clients who make the business what it is, and they've taught me so much in life. And I have clients of all ages and skin colors and different backgrounds. And honestly, some of them have become my family at this point. So the best part would be seeing their faces and connecting to them and talking to them and just really building those relationships with my people.
That's awesome. Well, that is just perfect. I think the students really benefited from hearing all of that. That was fantastic, but thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you to
Okay,
everybody watching. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
bye-bye. Thanks to Hiba. And next up, our next speaker is Teighan Francis, who is a school psychologist with Frontier School Division. Hi, Teighan. How are
Hey,
you? Do you want to take a couple minutes and tell us about you and your path, and then we'll jump into a Q&A?
sounds good.
Okay.
So hi everyone, my name's Teighan, and as Greg said, I'm a school psychologist with Frontier School Division, Area 2, so I'm based out of Dauphin. So my journey with school psychology started from a pretty young age. I always knew that I wanted to help people and more specifically wanted to support mental well-being. So throughout the years, I kind of narrowed that broad goal down to a more specific career path. So the first kind of clarification came from watching the TV show Frasier with my grandma as a child and learning what a psychiatrist was. And then in my high school career planning class, figuring out potential degrees, the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and looking at universities. And then my final step in choosing this career specifically was when I started to experience anxiety in high school myself and realized that resources in rural communities for school-aged youth is just so incredibly limited. particularly if you also experience the barriers of limited income or limited travel. And I also strongly believed, and still do, that prevention and early intervention for mental health can lead to better outcomes in adulthood. So courtesy of those kind of steps in high school and a passion for working with children and youth, I chose to go for school psychology. So to be a school psychologist in Manitoba right now, the pathway is basically a 4-year undergraduate honors degree and a 2 or 3 years master's program. You can continue on for your PhD if you like, but the province doesn't currently require it to work or practice in schools. So for the undergraduate degree, you can either take a science or an arts route. Personally, I took the arts route just because it seemed like the classes were a little bit more about what I might need going forward in school psychology. And I went to University of Winnipeg because I really liked their small class sizes, coming from a rural setting myself. An undergraduate degree in psychology itself is usually a 3-year program, but in order to progress to graduate school, you do need to take that additional honors studies here that focuses more on research, and you have to complete your own thesis work. So for graduate school, to get your master's, programs in Canada are pretty limited just for school psychology specifically, but we are lucky enough that University of Manitoba offers it here, but it also means that the competition is really quite high. We have international students coming from all over the world to be a part of that program. So it can be a little intensive. So currently they are adjusting the entry requirements. And I don't want to give you guys the wrong information, but for sure, 2 key components of getting in are a high GPA. So typically about a 4.0 and a successful interview. There are 2 streams, a comprehensive stream, which is 2 years. That's the route that I took because I don't like doing research, and a thesis stream that is 3 years, just to give additional time for completing and defending your graduate thesis work. And you would need that to do a PhD. You do 2 practicums, so 1 each year, and that means that you work alongside a practicing school psychologist, both observing and working for yourself each year. And then once you start practicing on your own, sorry, my light shuts off in my office. Once you start practicing for your own, you have 2 years of supervision as well, just to make sure that you're practicing in an ethical and competent way in your school division. So talking a bit about the job itself, one of my favorite parts is being able to provide support for students who otherwise may never receive it. It's a pretty incredible feeling to go to work every day and know that you're making a difference for students and their families. The highlights of school psychology are so many, and Frontier has its own unique highlights as well. I know a couple other people have mentioned travel, and that's a great part of it as well. I just came back from Norway House last week, so that was a great opportunity. And I just really love being in schools and around so many unique and amazing students. You get to see some of the best moments, like littles learning to read and being excited about it. And you also get to be there for some of the tough times and getting to see how people really come together to support each other. The role is really diverse. And I think working rural and northern is great too, because you get to have flexibility in your role and you can kind of decide what you'd like to lean into. So some of the roles that we play in schools can include doing assessments, providing diagnoses, implementing interventions, providing counseling, consulting with teachers, counselors, administration, doing threat assessments, crisis support, behavioral analysis, psychoeducation, like the list just goes on. And you get to kind of pick what you're passionate about and adjust your role for that. Teamwork is a really key component to this job. We work hand in hand with other clinicians like speech language pathologists and other school staff, right up to bus drivers and janitors, just to identify students that are struggling, make sure that students are receiving the supports that they need, make sure everyone feels connected and cared for, and to try and prevent students from falling through the cracks, which is, of course, pretty lofty goals, but a team that works well together really makes all the difference. So it's probably the biggest part of the job. That and flexibility. Schedules change constantly. Parents have things come up, students miss school, crisis situations come up. You really have to be able to be working with patients and be adaptive, but it's so worth it. My advice for students considering a career in school psychology would be to probably just reach out and shadow someone practicing near you so you can get a feel for the job, and to get experiences working with children. Also, just try out a few other career paths as well. There's so many great avenues in psychology, and you don't necessarily have to stick with one either. I personally have had other opportunities pop up already in hospitals and private settings. So I guess the biggest thing is if you're passionate about providing support to others, there's always going to be people ready and willing to accept it. Yeah. Oh,
Thanks so much. We got a bunch of questions, so I'll jump right to them. Do you find your work can be stressful, and is it hard to leave work at the office?
Yes, that is a huge part of our job. It is stressful in so many different ways, not just the caseloads, but some of the things that you see and that you deal with on a daily basis. You really have to look after your own mental health. That's a huge part of the program as well, is you have to fill your cup to be able to pour into others, right? So every day making sure that you are mindful of your self-care, and looking after yourself, and leaving work at home, or leaving work at work and not taking it at home as best you can. It's a struggle, and it's something that you have to be mindful as a clinician of, and that you're keeping an eye on yourself.
Okay, I'm just writing down your quote about you have to fill your cup to pour into others, because I love that. Okay, on that note, do you have a success story that is sort of just one of your, I'm sure you've had lots, but do you have one success story that sort of you were very proud of?
Yeah, I had a student this year, actually, I'm so glad you asked that question, in a northern community who has struggled throughout school. I just did a reassessment with him to get him ready to go off to college, to make sure he had the supports that he needed. He's graduating against really tough odds. He's graduating, he's going on to a program that is perfect for him. It's actually contracting. He's a very visually strong student, hands-on student, and he's so excited, and I'm so excited for him. And it was just such a good feeling to see someone that went against the odds, got the support, and is going to do great.
That's fantastic. Do you schedule appointments with students during school hours, and are parents or guardians also involved?
Yep, absolutely. I want families involved as much as possible. I try to do most of my work during school hours where possible, but of course you have to be flexible. Some parents are not able to meet during that time, but my work day is typically 8:30 to 4:30, so there is time after hours as well, but try to get it done during the workday.
Okay. I'll let you touch on this, and then I mention it to everyone. I just read in the Winnipeg Free Press this morning, there was an article about, the headline was "Desperate Shortage of Psychologists Causing Critical Delays in Youth Care." And it talks about how Manitoba has the lowest rate per capita of psychologists registered within schools, especially in northern Manitoba. So I guess that speaks to the huge demand and opportunities for students if this is a field that they're interested in.
Absolutely. So for instance, Frontier School Division has 5 different areas. We'd ideally have at least a school psychologist in each area, and right now we have 2 for the 5 areas. But we have a neat joint program going on with the University of Manitoba, where the school psychology students will fly out to one of our areas for a week-long blitz assessments, just to help catch up with the students. But the opportunities with Frontier are wonderful. We are desperate for people. The University of Manitoba is starting a program for Northern and Indigenous students specifically to get into the program, get them educated, and get them back into their own communities. So lots of opportunities.
Okay. What made you want to work in schools, and that you continue to want to work in schools rather than going into private practice or something like that? Because as someone's saying, I don't know if you know it, but students can be a handful.
I love students. I really love the tough students. There's always a reason for behavior, and I'm really passionate about that. There's always something going on. There's always a story, and I want to make sure that students that might not have access to other resources are getting supports. They're having someone listen to them, and they're not feeling quite as alone. In rural and northern communities, like, the resources are just so limited. And so even though it might be a little bit more monetarily beneficial to work in private practice, that's not my personal passion. My passion is to support students that don't have anyone else. So
Fantastic. So speaking of monetary, can you give our students a sense of the range of salary expectations working in schools versus going into a private practice, for example?
Well, it really depends on your division. We work on a teacher's contract, so you can look up the collective agreements for any division in Manitoba. Frontier has one of the best and most competitive wages, and I get a clinician's bonus on top of that. So you can look up that information based on where you think you might want to work. If you want to work private practice, typically you're going to be in a city setting. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And I can't say the specific difference that there would be between wages. Working privately, you have to keep in mind that if someone doesn't show up, you don't get paid, right? So there's consistency issues there, and you have to buy all your own kits, which are ridiculously expensive. So there's pros and cons to both, really.
Gotcha. Okay. Toughest part of your job, and you might have already touched on this, but the question just came across. What's the hardest part of being a psychologist, and I guess in a school setting?
I think the tough parts are some of the best parts too. Sometimes it is hard to separate and to take, that step back. So that can be tough too. But again, that's one of the best parts. You are involved in a kid's life and making a difference. So that's part of the job. One of the other tough parts is that once you're done with a student, you follow up with them for a couple of years, but then they're off your caseload, right? So sometimes sometimes you miss the best parts of their success stories, but you still hear it through the grapevine. So that's tough too.
Okay. Is type of career path you're on working in the school setting, can you do that at all different school levels, whether it's elementary, high school? Like, could you work in a university, for example?
Yeah, so I get to work with all ages right now, nursery to grade 12, and then supporting students as they prepare and transition into college as well. There's so many opportunities that you can do with a master's in school psychology. You're not limited to working in schools at all. And in fact, I was just talking with our program coordinator about potentially doing some virtual teaching for the university myself at the master's level. So there's so many opportunities.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. So we're out of time, but thanks so much. This, I know it was really enlightening for all of our students, and really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah, and I'll put my contact in the chat as well if anyone has any additional questions.
Yeah, and we'll share it with all the teachers when we send out our survey. Thanks again to you.
Great, thanks.
Okay, take care. Next up is our next speaker is Reanna, Merasty, an architectural intern at number 10 Architectural Group. And tell me, did I say your name? I probably got it wrong.
Kind of. It's Reanna Merasty.
Merasty.
Close.
Perfect. Okay. Do you want to take a couple minutes and just sort of tell us about your path, and then we'll jump into a Q&A?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks, Greg. So my name is Reanna Merasty. I am Woodlands Cree from Barren Lands First Nation, which is a remote community in northern Manitoba, and I currently live in Winnipeg. I am an architectural intern at number 10 Architectural Group, and it's also known as an intern architect. So I work in the fields of architecture and design. And when I was really interested in to get into architecture, initially because my grandpa is a log cabin builder, so I was always around the aspect of construction in the north. So that led me into enrolling into a drafting program in high school. So in this drafting program, I loved to work with my hands. So I was really into woodworking, but it was also an opportunity for me to get introduced to some of the architecture design software programs on the computer, which was like AutoCAD, SketchUp, and various things like that allowed me to 3D build, but it also allowed me to get understanding of how to work with those different programs and get into the field of architecture. So from that drafting program, I started to go to a lot of career fairs like you're doing now. And I was really interested into understanding environmental design and architecture. And I think I went to about 4 or 5 career fairs, and every single time I went up to the University of Manitoba booth and asked them the same questions and see if I could learn anything new. And it was about when I was in grade 11 that I chose this career path for me, and it hasn't really changed since then. So after graduating high school, I was accepted into the University 1 course at the University of Manitoba. So this is where I was able to take the first year required courses from the Faculty of Architecture, and also take various required math and science courses. And then from there, I applied and was accepted into the Bachelor of Environmental Design program. This program is kind of a little bit different than others. After your first year, all of 100 students are put together and do a various range of studio projects and courses. But then after that second year, your third and your fourth year are divided into various specialties. So you can either go into architecture, interior design, or landscape architecture. So for me, I got into the field, the section of architecture. And then once I graduated from my bachelor's program, I immediately went into the Master's of Architecture program. And then I completed that back in 2021. And after completing the education portion of my career, I'm now in the internship portion. So I'm working on completing a set of hours with the internship in architecture program with the Manitoba Association of Architects. And after I receive these hours, I then go into an exam process. So this is a series of 4 exams, which I'll be taking at the end of next year after I complete a certain amount of hours. And then when I pass, I will be considered a certified architect, and I get a fancy stamp with my name on it that I'm able to sign off on construction drawings, and be able to build a range of things and get a different level of responsibility, I would say. And what I do from a day-to-day depends on where we are in a project. So a project can go from either a proposal, which is like writing of how we actually win a project, to pre-design, schematic design, design development, construction documents, tender process, and also contract administration and construction administration. And with each step goes in a little bit more detail. For example, I'm on schematic design for one project, which is mainly looking at what rooms are needed in a building based on the program, the size of each of those spaces, and how they're going to be laid out in the building, and making sure that every room is connected with another in a very seamlessly way, and it's able to be accessible. And another, I can get creative on design and also schematic design and design development. So I can be sketching, I could be drawing patterns, I can be figuring out the form of the building with a 3D modeling program. I could be creating 3D models, doing physical models. And I can also be creating what we call renderings. So renderings are those really fun perspectives that you usually see that show what the building would look like. So it's just like a little imaginary image that we create to show clients, to show the public of what the building will look like in the future or when it is built. I'm hosting engagement workshops with client groups. And another project that I have is also in construction right now. So I'm choosing finishes and different finishing types. And I'm also interacting with consultants. So I interact with mechanical, electrical, structural, civil engineers, landscape architects, and also people in the construction like Brennen in every single project that I'm doing, and making sure that the inside systems work for the design that we're proposing. So every day is completely different based on where we are, but it's also very creative and interesting, and I learn something new every single day. One of the highlights of, I guess, my career is the project types that I work on. So from doing currently, these are all the projects that I have in different various stages of design. I'm working on a small 1- and 2-bedroom houses for a First Nation, and also an apartment complex. I'm working on a hockey arena, an elders lodge, an assisted living facility, offices, a community wellness hub that assists with people that are houseless and living on the street. I'm doing a museum, a daycare, ceremony space, smudging rooms, a student center for a university, and even in aerospace welding and machine workshop. So all these range of projects has you learning and interacting with so many different types of people, which I think is the most interesting part about what I do and the career that I'm on. Another highlight is a lot of my projects really focus on working with Indigenous people. So there's very little Indigenous people in the field of architecture. And I think there's currently around 30 Indigenous architects in all of Canada. So it's a very little representation that we have in architecture. So being able to have that representation, but also work with Indigenous clients, I think is so important to me in the work that I do. And just to close off, if there's anything that I would have wanted to hear when I was in high school, is to get creative, to learn how to draw, enroll in art classes, do woodworking. People always think about, when they think of architecture, is the math side of it, but I think the creative side of it is a huge part of it as well. So this will assist with you filling a portfolio that assists with you applying to architecture. So sometimes the application process to get into some of these programs requires you to have a portfolio. So usually that is just drawings of different things that you create when you're in high school. So there also are drawing and photography classes when you get into architecture, but I wish I did more creative outlets when I was in high school, because when I entered into architecture, I had no idea how to draw or work a camera or anything along those lines. So I think that would be very helpful if you were to pursue a career in architecture. So I think I'll leave it there, and if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them.
That's fantastic. There's a whole bunch of questions, so I'll come at you fast and furious. What's the difference between your job and a building engineer?
A building, so mine is the way that I see it, I do the outside and the building engineer does the inside. So they make sure that it stays up and I make sure that it looks pretty. To put it in very simple terms.
Put that on your business card. Okay. Yeah. Is there a further specialization for commercial, retail, or residential architecture?
I don't think so. I think all of them can go hand in hand. And so like I mentioned before, that there's a range of things that I could be working on a day-to-day. Eventually I will get to a specialty, but because I'm so early on in my career that I've just been handed every single type of project. And then eventually, if I find something that is very interesting to me, I will use that as my specialty and make that my career path. So within my firm, I have all these different partners. So one specializes in civic, one specializes in institutional / education. So that is like a path that I will take eventually, but I don't think there are any like requirements. Usually it's just you want to make sure that if you are to go on another project, that you also have experience in that list of that project previously. So they're looking for, usually clients are looking for that large portfolio of all the different projects that you've done in order to get that project, because you have all that wealth of experience and knowledge in that type of architecture.
Okay. Do you plan, and you may not have thought about this, but do you plan to work for someone else at another firm, or do you hope to one day start your own firm?
I see myself staying where I am currently at number 10. I've made sure that the place that I was working at for my internship could also be a possibility that I live my career and work here. There are opportunities that I hope to do in the future when I become an architect, such as like experience a new city, like try to work out in the mountains, because it's a whole different type of landscape over there as well on the West Coast. But also I also would really love to interact with more Indigenous architects, because I am one of 2 in an office of 70. So I would love to interact with the next generation that comes in and maybe teach them a bit.
Yeah, for sure. What is your dream design, your dream project? If there was one thing that you sort of thought about over the last couple of years where you're like, I would love to be involved in that, which is already existing, or something that hasn't even started and that would be your dream project?
If I were to be really optimistic and dream a little bit, I would love to work on a national museum. I always think about the Museum of History, which is in, I think, Ottawa now. Quebec, and at that scale would be incredible. Another thing that I've always wanted to do was to work on a high school or an elementary school in the north, in a remote community. So that's actually why I was really drawn to number 10, because I have they've built schools in northern Manitoba for First Nations for a very long time. So that's kind of that's my dream project to do.
Okay. Okay, important question. What is the average salary for an architect? And I know there's obviously a huge range, but do you have a sense of like what the average amount is or the range?
So I'm currently an intern, so I don't know that next step.
Okay.
But I can give you a range. So it also based on where you're working. So Vancouver can be completely different than Winnipeg and stuff like that. But there is a range about 70 to 80,000 a year. And it also can get more based on your level and your specialty, but also where you are in the firm in terms of like associate, partner, and it can rise for that based on your wealth of experience.
Gotcha. Does your work require you to go to the site where the building will be constructed and meet with clients, or is all your work and meetings done in the office or virtually?
Yeah, most of my work is in the office. So as part of each of your projects, at the end, when the building starts construction, you get what we call like a contractor construction administrator. So we have a whole like construction section in our office. So usually they are the ones to interact with the people on site, but I do have opportunities to kind of shadow them and understand kind of like and watch the building systems be built in real time. So usually that's not my position that I'm working on, but it's the people the section that we have in our office.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we're out of time, and I really want to thank you for joining us. This was absolutely fascinating, and continued success on your path to getting through all of your exams next year, and that's just fantastic. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for listening.
Take care. Next up is Lee Jackson, who's the lead operations manager at Tundra Oil and Gas. Lee, if you want to take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself and your path, and then we'll jump to a Q&A.
Yeah, for sure. So as you indicated, my name's Lee Jackson. I work as an operations engineer for Tundra Oil and Gas based in Brennen, Manitoba. So for those of you that don't know, Tundra is an oil and gas company that operates in the southwestern corner of the province, as well as southeastern Saskatchewan. Tundra actually started operations in 1980 and now produces over 33,000 barrels of light crude oil per day. So one of the questions we were asked is, how did I get where I am? So I actually grew up in a small farming community in the southwestern corner of the province. I always loved math and sciences, but really didn't know what was out there. So when I was probably around you guys' age, I actually went to a university career fair, and that's where I got interested in engineering. I didn't know much about it until I went there. So then I started looking into it, and it really caught my eye. I always liked figuring out how stuff worked and the data that went along with it. So it kind of seemed like a good fit. I applied to the University of Manitoba for their direct entry engineering program and actually got in. So that allowed me to go through U1 at University of Manitoba, make sure it was the right fit for me. And then I kind of picked to specialize in civil engineering from there. I actually applied to Tundra as a summer student and ended up being hired with them for 3 summers in a row while I was in university. The first 2 summers, I worked with them in the field aspect, checking wells, going over their infrastructure in terms of maintenance, looking into the equipment, stuff like that, determining what the wells made, water, oil, gas production. And then for the 3rd summer with them, I actually transitioned to more of an office role. I was going through a lot of the data, maps and stuff like that, using some of my AutoCAD knowledge that I learned in university to kind of map out a visual representation of where their infrastructure and lines were underground so that everyone could see it. And then once I finished with them, 3rd year summer student, I actually had an offer when I went to my last year university to come back and work for them full time. So I took that offer, and when I started with Tundra full time, I worked in their facility and construction department for 5+ years. So that would be building flow lines, working with piping, working with welders, working with design engineers, stuff like that, to try and build infrastructure that would transport the production from the well to the facility so that it can be processed. Now I work more in the operations engineering side of things. So I've been doing this role for 5+ years. So it's more working with our operations staff and the field reps on what's happening in the field. If there's issues, how can we help address them or solve them? Or is there different ways of going about doing things than what's been done historically to make their lives easier or more efficient with what they're doing day to day? So a typical work week for me, I deal with the operations staff a lot, fielding questions, helping them through some of the issues, looking into other solutions, tracking projects that we're trying new things on. I deal a lot with new team members, showing them different aspects of the industry, their role, stuff like that. I've been here for a fair few years, so it's nice to be able to share that knowledge. I go to the field a couple times a month just to meet with the reps more if there's stuff that we need to look at on site. I've really started getting into the maintenance side of the industry. So we have different equipment, whether it's pump jack, pumps, different things like that. So I've started looking into their failure ratios, how long they run, if there's different ways we can service them to try and make the runtime better or that kind of stuff. And then kind of a new passion project of mine, I guess, is I started getting into the data analytics or data sciences. So we have all these equipment, all this data. So I've started looking into the data in terms of leading and lagging indicators for failure. How long does it run? Where we can go with this? Is there different things we can change? And kind of trying to make better visualizations and understanding on kind of what's making the equipment do what it does. So one of the questions was, in my industry, what kind of roles can there be? So there's engineering roles, yes, but we also at Tundra have on staff accountants, HR, maintenance, instrumentation, electricians, geologists, operators, purchasing, many different types of engineering as well. So facilities construction, drilling, geology, production, geophysicists, stuff like that. I guess one of the other questions we had was, what kind of advice can you provide to students considering this career choice? So the biggest piece of advice I can offer is, don't be afraid to try it out. I know engineering can be daunting and people think it is all math, but that is only a portion of it. I say, if you like to see how stuff works and you want to figure out what makes it tick, engineering might be a good fit for you. There's many different types of engineering. I went civil because I was more interested in that side of things. But when I went to university at the U of M, there was mechanical, biosystems, and a bunch of other kind of options you have there. And that's kind of my summary. Oh, you're on mute, Greg.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks so much. We'll open it up to questions. And first couple of things. If somebody is interested in this field, this industry in high school, like our students are there courses that they should focus more on or lean towards more on in the event that this would be a field they get into, i.e. take those high school courses because you're going to need them for university eventually if you go in that field?
So I would definitely say you want to do your math courses, your calculus courses, your sciences. I went to a very small school and did all the sciences: chemistry, biology, math, science. Those were kind of not necessarily, we didn't have many other electives, so I did them all. But I would definitely say you want to get your maths and your sciences, and you have to have your language ones. There's a lot of learning on reports and presentations and stuff like that. So definitely a focus on the maths and sciences though.
Okay. What would your dream project be?
I've been lucky. I've done quite a few things with Tundra. They hired me on from right out of university. I've done projects from the putting in big infrastructure systems in the millions of dollars range to now transitioning to more in the maintenance. My dream project, I guess, would be to try and kind of revamp our maintenance program, just to try and figure out if we could get every piece of equipment on on an understanding of how it works and what makes it fail, and we could try and limit those failures. Like if I could get through all the data and all those pieces of equipment, that would be kind of my dream project.
Okay. Always get this question. What would the average salary be, or what's the salary range? And I know that's a loaded question because there's lots of different jobs within Tundra and that industry.
Yeah, so I figured that question would be coming. So with engineering, when you're a full-time engineer, it will depend on your number of years of experience, what industry you're in. But looking it up a little bit, I might have done a bit of research before that question came up. I think it says your salary range for that first full-time engineer is that 70,000 range, but it will really depend on where you're at and what you're doing.
Okay. I know you said you go out in the field a couple times a month, but I've got this question. Are you at oil well sites frequently, and what's that like?
I'm there frequently enough. When I was a summer student, I was at 70, 80 a day because you're checking the wells. And
Wow.
it's interesting because you're looking for that pump jack or that piece of equipment. You're checking for creaks, squeaks, if the fluid levels are proper. It's definitely interesting. It's big pieces of equipment, and you have to, like Tundra's motto is everyone home safe every day. So there is some safety aspects to that. So it's definitely an interesting thing to see.
Okay. Just as far as opportunities within this industry, I don't know if all students are aware, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but oil and gas is centered mostly in the southwest corner of Manitoba. Is that right? And if so, what do you sort of say to students about opportunities in Manitoba versus Alberta, where we assume that, you know, there's an oil well on every street corner?
So yeah, you are correct. Southwest Manitoba is kind of where you'll find that oil and gas pocket, and it kind of extends as part of the Williston Basin into Saskatchewan, and then you've got kind of different oil locations in Alberta and the other side of Saskatchewan there. In terms of opportunities in this area, you can find it in Manitoba, you can find it in Saskatchewan. I like the Manitoba aspect because this is home. I grew up in this area not far from actually where I work now. So that's nice. I'm close to family, but there's definitely, we have a kind of a more conventional, if you wanted some more like cutting edge technology or oil sands or different kind of aspects, there's definitely some more of that, more on the Alberta side of things. We're definitely more of that conventional oil play, oil, water, gas separation, and kind of producing it from there.
Okay. A different note, someone asks, is schooling the same for all types of engineers? Do all engineers get the ring?
So that schooling is very similar for all types. So you kind of all start, I went to University of Manitoba, so you kind of all start U1, you do those 12 courses, and then you can specialize your second or third year from there into which branch. You do interact with all the other kind of engineering disciplines for similar courses, but you definitely branch out more into kind of your discipline. So if you're doing electrical engineering or computer engineering, you're going to definitely do more of that electrical or programming, whereas civil is more bridges, buildings, construction type stuff. So you kind of branch either way.
Gotcha. What's it like working for what they presume is a really big company, Tundra Oil and Gas, and which is owned by an even bigger company, James Richardson and Sons Limited? Are there any sort of advantages, disadvantages, as opposed to working perhaps for a smaller company?
So I really like working for Tundra. They have this, it's a wholly based like James Richardson Son company. So you have that feeling of you can make the decisions in your company. A smaller oil company is kind of similar. It's just going to be, you're going to be more individual opportunity based. So you're going to be maybe in one play, whereas Tundra has quite a bit of a spread out area. So I've done multiples, we call them different areas or teams. So I've been on multiple different ways so that if I can learn different kind of areas, if that makes any sense what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, we're out of time. It's 11:30. So I really appreciate you joining us, Lee. This was fascinating, and continued enjoyment and success in your field.
Thank you.
Thanks. So that brings us to the end of our second World of Choices session, everybody. Thanks to our fantastic speakers. I hope you found the sessions valuable. Teachers, in the coming days, you're going to get a survey from JA to collect your thoughts on the event, so please fill it out. And our last session is May 9th at 2:15 p.m. and we'll, at that session, have folks from totally different career paths. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everybody, and take care.